Hello, my name is Chloe Folan, and today's video is a little bit different because it's just more of a personal sharing. It may or may not resonate with you, but it's a personal sharing I've been musing over, creating a video for a couple of weeks. And it just got to the point where I felt, why not? Why not just share these musings and just put them out there and just see where it goes from there. So that's all this is, a personal sharing. It's not in response to any client work or classes that I've been teaching. This is all purely coming from personal observations, personal musings, things I've been personally seeing and witnessing and noticing just in general over the last couple of weeks. So look, bear with me. I might start out like I'm sounding like I'm rambling a bit, but bear with me. I'll get to my main point, and hopefully it does spark some insight or bring home certain values to you, or just as always, just maybe provide some interesting food for thought. So here we go. One of the main reasons I sat down and I was like, right, no, I'm going to create a video just talking out loud about this, is, as some people are aware, I'm actually a massive Star Trek fan. Like that, I would have seen all of the Voyager, Star Trek Voyager series episodes, Deep Space Nine. I love the older Star Trek movies with William Shatner, the one with about the whales, where they went back in time to get whales because in the future there was no whales and it was wreaking havoc. One of their very first Star Trek motion pictures with Vija. Good grief, I've seen all of them, all of the movies, all of the series from start to finish, rewatched the whole works. And one of my favorite Star Trek movies of all time, and it's a little more of a recent one, would be Star Trek Insurrection. Just to give a rundown over how this is tying into the deeper topic I want to talk about, for those that don't know the film, in the film, Patrick Stewart, a phenomenal actor among other things, plays Jean-Luc Picard. And in this particular movie, it turns out that the Federation, the Star Trek Federation, unknowingly is involved in a blood feud with a group of people living in the Briar Patch and a particular planet in the Briar Patch. So as it all unfolds, and everything's phenomenal, really good film. But my main thrust with this is I was sitting down rewatching that film last week. And in this film, on this planet in the Briar Patch, and the reason why it centers around this sneaky business that the Federation unknowingly got involved in, is because this particular planet in the Briar Patch had radiation rings around it that would keep anyone living on the planet youthful. Now, it turns out that you'd have to be on the planet's surface, for about 10 years for it to start to kick in. But after about 10 years, it would start to reverse the aging process and any damage caused by the aging process. And the name of the peoples living on this planet are called the Baku. So the Baku are turned out to have found this amazing planet that they'd been living on for about 300 years, I believe. And all of them were a lot older than what they looked. They basically found the fountain of youth in a planet. Once you reached maturity, meaning they were still having babies normally, children going through their normal growing phases, but once you hit adulthood, it would literally freeze you at a very youthful adulthood genetic time in your life and keep you at a very youthful state and seriously prolong your life without any aging signs, any physical aging signs. So anyway, where I'm going with this, and this crops up in the film as well, is of course everyone's fascinated when that comes out and when that bit of information comes out that this is what the planet does and why it's being sneakily fought over and all of these double dealings going on. But what I found fascinating, it is also highlights a trait in human behavior where we will automatically give huge value to something fantastical like that and overlook the other little gifts that we all possess. And this was highlighted, as we are, and this was highlighted in the film, where one of the Baku Anish is speaking to Jean-Luc Picard when he's working out that the planet is having some kind of regression on age and regression on age-related diseases and things of that nature. And she basically is not allowing herself to get caught up in his fascination with what's starting to dawn on him, because he's all about, oh my God, how old are you actually? And just huge fascination with working all this out and all of this, and how long do you apprentice, and oh my God, are people really that old down here? My God, they don't look about, all of this fascination with youthfulness and eternal youth and how that would work and all of that. And she's toning down her answers. She's refusing to get caught into the excitement. And then she turns around and changes the subject and goes, there is other magic on this planet. And then she starts saying to him, have you ever experienced a perfect moment in time? And he's kind of looking at her because he's kind of taken aback that she's not really being drawn into the bigger fascination, the bigger fountain of youth thing going on, where she's trying to bring him back to something very simple. And so he's kind of thrown by it, but he goes with it. And then she sits down with him and she starts talking to him over how one of the amazing skills she feels she's learned living on this planet as a Baku is her ability to slow down time. And as she's talking to him about it and about experiencing a perfect moment in time, they're sitting in a field and a little hummingbird flies past, and then all of a sudden, as she's talking, Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, is watching this hummingbird starting to slow down its wing motion. All of a sudden, the breeze seems to slow down and everything starts to look like it's moving in slow motion. And she holds it at that point while talking to him about allowing yourself to experience a perfect moment in time as you are. Every single time I rewatch Star Trek Insurrection, that always gets my attention, no matter how many times I watch that particular scene. And I'm always sitting down saying to myself as I'm watching that scene in the film that this is reflective of a very normal human behavior where we put so much value on fantastical things, and the next fantastical thing or the next big thing, in other words, it harks back to a deeper issue where before we go getting caught up in psychic powers, so to speak, before we go getting caught up in SIDS and working with energy and how to work with energy and directing energy, wouldn't it be amazing if we were all taught how to experience and be able to slow down a perfect moment in time. So in other words, let me describe it like this. Sometimes I come across people who are asking me about whether SID's psychic powers are actually real and does it happen and things of that nature. And yes, it does. There have been people in remote parts of the world who do train in certain meditation techniques and martial arts techniques and things of that nature that can, you know, leap huge amounts of, you know, they can, you've seen them even here in the Western world, those people that would be able to hop, skip and jump across buildings looking like they've got springs in their legs, and it's real, it's not photoshopped, it's not edited. People like that where can jump huge distances, seem to just bounce across buildings like they've got springs in their legs. There are people on this planet that can levitate for real. It's not an illusion. Can levitate. But here's the thing, let's look at this for a minute. When it comes to looking at that and people going, wow, wouldn't that be amazing if that was more accessible? I'd love to go and learn in one of those remote places and access those types of very unknown teachings, to do things like that. Can we have a look at that for a minute? Someone spending the majority of their life, because they usually start training very young, someone the majority of their life spending huge copious amounts of time to meditate and train, to learn how to levitate a few meters off the ground. That is a real thing. Levitate a few meters off the ground. It has been documented. It's just not widely shown. As fantastic as that is, as amazing as that is, when have you ever heard of someone's life being saved by someone who's spent that amount of time learning to levitate? I haven't. I've never heard of someone who has that skill saving someone's life with that skill. Do you see what I mean? All of this interest and all of this attention giving to what seems to be very fantastical because it's unknown, or at least unknown widely to us, or maybe still relegated to the realm of fantasy or something like that. All of that attention. But when you sit down and observe it and look at it as a whole and look at it in terms of a service, I'll say it again. When have you ever heard of someone who's spent all of that time, all of those years to learn how to do something like that, who's then saved someone's life? And let me bring this back to what I was talking about with the insurrection film and slowing down your time. To me, the ability to be in a beautiful, harmonious flow and to be able to bring yourself to a physical, emotional, and mental place, to be able to fully absorb, not rush through, and sit with a perfect moment in time, to be able to have the ability to extend that experience, hold on to that experience longer, to be able to enjoy a perfect moment in time, to be able to slow down your time, especially when everyone else seems to be trying to speed everything up. To me, that is a greater superpower than all of the effort and training it takes to learn how to actually levitate. And look at it this way. When you're practicing doing that, now another way of describing that skill is learning to observe without distortion. And there's an amazing high degree initiate I've sometimes spoken about. I can't pronounce his name. Jiddu Kurasmati, I'm not saying it properly, very high degree initiate who, thank God, a lot of videos were documented of talks that he gave and things of that nature. So thank God we've got a record of a lot of what he taught and the teachings that he gave. I love watching back the videos from his foundation that are preserving his work and preserving his work in a very undistorted way, and all of his videos and interviews and things of that nature. And he created quite a few videos and talks over observing without distortion. And that's another way of describing learning how to slow down and observe a perfect moment in time. And to me, being able to observe without distortion, to be able to slow down your time, to be able to not be rushed, to be able to take your time, especially in this day and age. I consider that a greater superpower than levitation and all of the other stuff out there. I really do. And the reason why is because when you learn to observe without distortion, and it does take practice, or learn to observe without thought, but I'll explain that better in a minute. When you're doing that, you are fully present within yourself. You're allowing yourself to be fully conscious and present within yourself and your internal world. And when you are that relaxed, when you are that aligned, and when you are that centered, that vibration radiates out through your sphere of influence and also impacts what you are observing. And once again, this is not pseudoscience, what I'm now talking about. Some people think it is. There have been endless, proper scientific studies done over, is it the observer or what's observed that's being impacted, and how what's observing and what's observed interact and impact each other. And it's both. What you observe responds to you, and you are also responding to what you're observing. So when you bring that level of wholeness and awareness into a so-called perfect moment in time, which basically means slowing down your time. Are you present within your body? Are you aware of your breathing properly and how you're breathing? Are you aware of where you are and what's around you? Are you able to just sit, relax, and observe? And give yourself permission to just slow everything down. And from that still, quiet place within yourself, just observe without distortion. And when you are just observing and absorbing, and just allowing everything to be, including your internal world, that alone has huge healing impact on the outer environment. That is another way of blessing your outer environment, because you are in the moment and you are in full appreciation of the moment that you are more consciously aware of that you are in. And when you're appreciating and fully aware of what's going on around you and within you, that is another way of blessing your environment and what you're observing. And I'll say it again. That serves a far more healthy impact and is a far more greater service than someone going off into the wild blue yonder to access techniques that take you years to incorporate and learn, just to levitate a few feet off the ground. For what? For what? Who is that helping? Can you imagine being in a room of people who are practicing slowing down their time and being fully present within a moment in time? Can you imagine the waves of relaxation that would create? Can you imagine the waves of calm that would create just by taking time to practice just that alone? Coming back to what I was saying about observing without thought, just taking this a bit further, but this now would me be going into a slightly different topic over what the high degree initiate was describing, meaning talking about can you observe without thought and observing without distortion, meaning that basically means the same thing. Meaning, for example, if you're practicing this, what you will notice when you're starting to practice being fully present within yourself, fully present within a moment in time, fully allowing it to be, slowing down your time, which is an amazing superpower to have right now. You'll find that when you start to practice doing that, let's just say you are in the garden and you are near flowers or grass, practicing doing this. When you start practicing doing that, you'll find your mind thoughts all of a sudden going, well, isn't the grass really nice and green? And oh, isn't the sun nice? Thought automatically kicking off a narrative straight away, coming into what you're observing, bringing me back to what this high degree initiate was talking about, observing without thinking. Can you observe without a narrative going off in your head, even if it's a nice one? Grass, the sun, and oh, isn't this nice? I haven't relaxed like this for years. Mind going off on one the minute it starts to relax, which is reflective over how stressed and overtaxed some of our minds are, because it's used to go, 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 go. So the minute you start to slow down, you've nearly got to train your mind to stop always needing something to cling to think about and have a narrative about and digest. So that doesn't mean you still don't sit there and you're not aware there's grass around you, or a flower, or a tree, or wherever you are. But it's about learning to observe, completely letting go of any distortion of narrative over what you're seeing, because the minute a narrative starts and you're observing what you're looking at, the narrative you have in your head impacts what you're looking at. And like that, nothing wrong with that, meaning, yes, appreciate the grass, appreciate the trees, appreciate the water, but I'm taking it a step further than that, meaning fantastic, bless it all day long, but take it a step further and see, can you actually slow down a moment in time and do it without a narrative mentally starting in your head? It takes practice. It really does. But it's lovely to be able to get into that place where you learn to slow down your time and just be within yourself where you are without even needing an attachment narrative to what you're seeing. Just being, feeling, sound, just observing with no distortion or narrative. And my goodness, not easy to do in today's very noisy world, where there is, especially through advertisement, this insidious push to speed everything up. Speed up technology, speed up your health, speed up your education, upskill. There is, in the collective, this huge pressure cooker going on over how high, how fast, how this, how that, how. So what an amazing superpower to have, to do the opposite and learn to slow down your time and to be able to extend and hold on to a perfect moment in time with no distortion. That's superpower. To me, it is anyway. So look, like I said, I'm just sharing. I might even put in the link to one of the High Degree Initiates videos where he's talking about his way of talking about observing without distortion, observing without thought. I might put that in down the bottom, but basically today was just more of a personal sharing, personal musing. So for anyone that has taken time to watch the video, I hope it's maybe triggered an interesting inspiration or two, or given a prompting for some personal, deeper insights, or, as I said before, some food for thought. So on that note, that's the personal sharing I wanted to put out there. I hope it's been interesting at the very least. On that note, 7 ray blessings to all.